Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I am your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is a music lover, Blue Jays fan, and an entrepreneur. While still in university, my guest co-founded a company that seemingly failed. So after graduation, he moved from Toronto, Canada, down to LA to work for EMI Music with the plan to permanently relocate for a long-term position. During the slight delay as he prepared to move, Microsoft found the website for his failed business and reached out to him. This was the official birth of Lyric Find, now the world's largest lyric licensing service. Now, let's hack Darryl Ballantyne. Email marketing. It can be so damn boring. Or it can be so damn awesome. It can. Email marketing is one of my favorite parts of being like an online entrepreneur. Absolutely. I find it fascinating. I find it intriguing. And I love having that direct contact with subscribers, with fans, with listeners, with readers, whatever it happens to be that I'm doing it at that point. Companies using marketing automation will see 53% higher conversions than those using traditional, or what I call boring, email marketing. ActiveCampaign will enable you to send perfectly timed messages in response to your customers' actions and behaviors. The best part is it's going to treat your email contacts as unique individuals, which they are, and you cannot forget that, rather than just sending everyone the same boring message over and over. Plus, ActiveCampaign is beautiful and easy to use, even for someone like me. There's no need to hire consultants because you can set it up for yourself. See why thousands are upgrading to a more intelligent marketing solution. Sign up right now for a 14-day free trial. Don't even need a credit card. How much better could that be? Visit activecampaign.com/hack. There's no training fees, there's no contracts, and pricing is absolutely accessible to anybody. Custom deal for Hack the Entrepreneur listeners right now. Free migration from your other email provider if you are using one. Your second month of service is absolutely free, and you're going to get a free one-on-one strategy session with their platform consultant. Start marketing smarter today. Get and convert more leads with ActiveCampaign. Go to activecampaign.com/hack and sign up for your 14-day free trial. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today we have a very, very special guest. Darryl, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure, man. Absolutely my pleasure. I think we're going to have a lot of fun. So what do you say? Should we jump into it?
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Excellent. Darryl, as an entrepreneur, can you tell me what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
It's tough to say. I think there have been a lot of contributors, but I think in our industry, being the music industry and with music tech, the biggest thing that has helped us is just being nice and being fair to people. We're in an industry that has traditionally been overrun with one-sided deals, whether it's record contracts or licensing deals for music services or other similar things. And when we started, we looked at every deal as something that would be a long-term process and a long-term client. So we tried to match our licensing structures to the revenue models of our clients. We looked at what was fair, not what was the maximum amount of money that we could extract from a particular client. So in doing that, we were able to create long-term sustainable deals, create partnerships, and create goodwill with the people that we were working with. And people liked doing deals with us. They liked working with us. And quite frankly, when we were at events or in other places, they liked hanging out with us because we were nice people. And part of that probably comes from being Canadian, but part of it is just the business philosophy that we have. And that meant that, unlike in other areas of the business, people wanted to keep working with us and would come back to us. As they moved from company to company, they would come and do another deal with us, knowing that it was a fair, long-term, sustainable licensing deal. And that helped us a lot in growing our client base and in winning over deals from our competitors.
I like this. So, I mean, looking back on it, you can see that attitude and being liked and being likable was something that allowed for long-term business relationships. But was this strategic from the get-go?
No, not really. I think it just kind of happened. We understood the industry. We understood what the economics were for our clients. And it was just the type of people that we were. And as we were growing the team, it naturally flowed that we hired people that were the same type of mentality and people that we had worked with across the table that we enjoyed working with ended up coming over and adopting that philosophy as well, or maintaining it because they generally already had it. So it wasn't so much a conscious decision as just a natural evolution of who we were as people and who we wanted to be as a company.
Right. And then fitting into an industry that is notoriously the opposite of that.
Right. I think it was a refreshing change for a lot of the people that we were working with to have a partner that truly looked at them as a partner and not as a pound of flesh to be had.
And when you say starting out, that was like 13 years ago at this point?
Yeah.
Has the industry changed and gone more your direction, or has it sort of stayed the same?
It's certainly changed, especially in the vein of doing fair deals. There's been a lot more exposure to it. A big theme in the music industry lately has been transparency. So artists and songwriters and others are much more open and have much more visibility into what royalties are being paid and where that money gets split up. Particularly in the physical world, there were all sorts of deductions, or there was obfuscation over how much was actually sold or reported versus manufactured, or all these different things. And there were a lot of ways where it was just confusing. And even if it wasn't happening, there was an aura of obfuscation and untrustworthiness to the industry. And certainly there were a number of scandals that didn't help that situation. But now there is a much more open environment. With digital, everything is based on actual accounting rather than estimates and market share. So it's easy to see what the actual amounts are, how the actual deals work, and know that things are being done fairly.
Wow. I mean, I guess almost every single aspect. I mean, from the outside, I'm a huge music fan and stuff, but I'm not part of that industry. But from the outside, it looks like it's completely changed, transformed from distribution to the way deals are made to, I think, the way bands even tour and sort of run themselves at this point.
Oh, for sure. There's so many tools. Talking about bands touring, they can look at things like Pandora's AMP platform that'll tell them which cities have the greatest concentration of fans listening to their music and plan a tour around that. Like, the data that's out there is incredible, and it just makes life so much easier. But even when we were starting out and doing licensing deals with music publishers to get the rights, we had publishers that did not want to tell us what songs they owned. They wanted us to just pay them a percentage of all of our revenues based on their perceived market share. And coming at it from an outsider's view and a technology view, the response to that was basically, why? Why would we just believe whatever market share you claim to have and pay you based on that when we don't even know what you own? So we don't know what we can use, and we have the capability of tracking your ownership and paying you exactly what your market share is of our usage, not based off some pie in the sky formula. So it certainly changed a lot from that.
So was that sort of the formation, like the idea of Lyric Find 13 years ago?
Well, we had so Lyric Find started in 2000 for the first time when we tried to do a consumer-facing website, and realized quickly that we needed to have licensing and tried to do licensing deals for it, but couldn't get them done. That was when the original Napster was blowing up and the music industry was trying to shut down the internet rather than work with it. So we shut that all off and went back to school and concentrated on that. But then in 2004, we got a call from Microsoft when they were launching the MSN Music Store, and they wanted to add lyric functionality into it. And they had found our old website, which had no lyrics on it, but did have my cell phone number. And they called me, and this is very metaphorical to how everything evolved after this call, but they called me literally while I was stepping onto a roller coaster at Canada's Wonderland with my family. And it was the summer after I had graduated from university. And thus began the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, of trying to, at that point, figure out, had the industry matured enough that we could get licensing, and wanting to do it as a B2B aggregator rather than as consumer-facing site. Because we knew from our experience that it was not feasible and the economics were not there for an individual service to go and do 4,000 or 5,000 publishing deals and build up a database of lyrics and manage licensing rights across 200 countries to be able to properly pay royalties and compensate for the usage of the copyrighted material. So turns out the industry had evolved, and slowly but surely we built up the licensing deals and the technology to be able to manage all of it. But it basically started out of a combination of our failed attempt years earlier and the evolution of the industry and growth of digital to a point where we were able to get the licenses that 4 years before we hadn't been able to get.
Wow. So there was a chance, I mean, it's possibly impossible to say, but that you wouldn't even have gone back to Lyric Find hadn't Microsoft called you on your cell phone?
Oh, I wouldn't have. It's not even a chance. It's a sure thing. I was actually in the process. I had spent my last co-op term at University of Waterloo, where we all met and got things started, down in LA working for EMI Music. And I was in the process of working out details to go back down to LA permanently and working on the visa and finalizing the job offer formalities, and that to go back down to LA and work for the record label. And instead, during that process, I got this call, and actually my first call afterwards, after my co-founders at least, was to Ted Cohen, who was my boss at EMI and has been on our board of directors ever since, and told him about the call and said, do you think the industry has changed enough? And he said yes, and has been supporting us and helping us through the challenges of the music industry ever since. And I never went back to work for him.
Wow. You've never went back to work.
Yeah. In a sense, I've never had a real job, so to speak, having to report to somebody else since university.
So how did that process go, though? Like, I mean, just thinking even from like a family and any other people you had around you at the time, you started something, it didn't work out. You went to school, you got a degree, you got a good job in LA, and you were getting set up to go there permanently. And during this time, you get a random phone call and you decide to change all of that and go out on a limb where things are completely unknown.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of interesting conversations, but my family was really, really supportive of it. My mother and stepfather were our only investors. They actually were the only ones to put money in the early days to help us get things started. And they're both accountants. They've been doing our taxes ever since. And my father and stepmother are both entrepreneurial spirits as well. And I after university, moved back in with them, and they were the harsh critics that I didn't want to have at the time, but really needed to have. My stepmother, especially, Terry, she was always the one that I dreaded showing the business plan to, because I knew that she would find the one thing in there that I didn't want to have to answer. And she did every time, but they were tough conversations, but they really helped to shape the business. And my mother as well had spent a long period of time working for herself as a contract accountant for a number of small companies. My brother and I used to get sent to school with a little slip of paper with the name and phone number of the company that she would be at that day in case we needed to get a hold of her. So it was always a very entrepreneurial spirit with both households growing up. They were all really supportive. There were certainly times where my dad would come up and sit next to my desk and ask me about how the deals were coming along and if they'd been signed yet. And I would have to say no. And he would question whether it was time that I started to find a real job. But all of that served the purpose to just keep pushing us forward and keep the foot on the gas and trying as much as possible. And eventually it all panned out. But all of my family was really, really supportive of it.
Nice. I guess that was essential at that point. And probably still to this day.
I couldn't afford to pay rent, so I had to be freeloading off of one of them.
All right, Darryl, at the beginning, you said that one thing you do or have done is being nice and being fair. Now, as like every blog post, sort of every expert around business these days talks about this 80-20 rule in business. You're supposed to find that 20% that you're good at, do what you're good at, delegate the rest. Can you tell me something, Darryl, that you are absolutely not good at in your business?
Well, for us, we've been terrible at consumer-facing services. We did have some mobile apps and tried to do a few other things and never really had any meaningful amount of success at that. So we generally have stayed out of that since because we thought that we could expand into mobile services and consumer-facing products and use that as test beds for different products and things that we were doing. Turned out in the end, we were just really, really terrible at creating consumer-facing products and websites. So that was something that we tried a few times and have just stayed away from ever since. Other than that, we've generally been, and me personally, since this fell under me, terrible at marketing. So much of our growth was based off of kind of manual, either cold calling or emailing or getting introductions to different people through our board members. But in general, marketing the company was not something that we were ever very good at. We didn't have a lot of exposure from that. Everything was word of mouth or client referrals. Until a couple of years ago, we hired our first full-time actual marketing person a couple of years ago, Catherine. She's righted that ship. A huge relief to me to not have to think about that stuff anymore because I was really, really bad at it.
Okay, so this is interesting. So all your marketing before was like the non-scalable type forms.
Right.
Cold calling, meeting people, and just kind of building those relationships.
Yeah, sponsoring conferences to get a banner up somewhere or that, but nothing that was really scalable or nothing that grew the PR side of it as well. Like there was very little media attention to what we were doing, even though we were the back end for everybody that was out there and doing a lot of significant deals.
So then you decided to be the CEO and hire somebody to take care of that rather than you try and muddle through it.
Yeah, probably just made that decision a couple of years later than I should have. In hindsight, we should have hired somebody a few years before when we actually could afford it, like as soon as we could afford it. But better late than never.
Right. And then, so going back to even something like the consumer facing or the app market or something and wanting to push into that, but saying how you guys aren't good at it and so you fail at it. But then looking at the other side of the equation with marketing and you weren't good at that, but you hired somebody. What sort of process do you go through, Darryl, either yourself or as a team, to decide, should we sort of put people in place to really take on the consumer facing market? Or is it just not worth our time, energy, and resources?
For us, it was a fairly easy decision on the consumer-facing side because when we launched our mobile apps and other things, which in the short term became really popular but trailed off over time, there were no other services creating lyric apps, and we really felt that there was a need to it. And our core business has just been licensing everybody else. And when nobody was coming to us wanting to create a mobile app, and we knew that there was a need and a desire for it, so we decided, all right, we'll create one ourselves. And for the short term, it worked really well. But then, of course, being true to our core, we licensed a number of other people to create mobile apps, which were then competing with our own. And we wanted to make sure that we let everybody do that and capture that market. By the time we were trailing off on our own apps, there were a number of others that we had licensed that were out there that were either paired with existing lyric websites that we had licensed or standalone ones that were doing a much better job than we were. And we really didn't want to continue to compete with our clients. We were okay with it at the beginning because there weren't any of our clients in that area. But when we were debating continuing the mobile apps and having people on board to really drive that forward, we looked at it and said, no, it's not our core. That void has been filled by a number of others, and there's no need for us to compete with our clients on that front going forward.
Right, because your customers are basically, you have two sets of customers, right? Like the people who have the lyrics to be licensed, and then publishers on the other side.
Yeah, so publishers are really our suppliers, like the music publishers, I suppose, not a web publisher. And then on the client side, we have everything from streaming music services like Apple and Deezer and Amazon and Pandora to websites like Metro Lyrics or Song Meanings or lyrics.com or mobile apps like Shazam and SoundHound or all sorts of different things like that. So our clients are really all of the services and all of the companies that want to push lyrics out as part of their service to the end user.
Okay, I see. And then the suppliers are the lyrics themselves. And I'm assuming as a business, you sort of take a cut sort of in the middle?
Right. Yeah. We work on a revenue share basis with the music publishers and pay them a portion of the revenue that we bring in based on their actual usage. So if a lyric gets no usage, it's not going to earn any revenue from us. But if it gets a lot of usage, it's going to earn a lot.
Right. And so growth for you guys is coming from publishers at this point, finding new publishers, sort of breaking into new markets rather than needing more suppliers, I'm assuming?
It is. Well, I guess the trick for our terminology is when we think of publishers, we think of music publishers who are the suppliers. And in the web world, a publisher is a website. So our growth is built off of right now a few different prongs. And that is finding new clients, whether it's new streaming services or websites or others, hardware devices, for example, and adding more content, both in new languages and new licenses from publishers, especially around the world. A lot of our growth is fueled by international services and international content now. And then also expanding the service of our existing clients. For example, if we were converting a streaming service from using static lyrics to synchronized lyrics, then that can drive growth, having them be users of the premium service rather than the static, and create a better environment and a better interaction with their users versus just the static lyrics. So it's a number of those fronts. We're also working on various new products that will come out over the next couple of years. One of the big things that we're excited about is called Lyric Merch. It's basically, oddly enough, going back to consumer facing, but in a different sense, and still working with all of our partners, but the ability for users to pick any line from any song and get that custom printed onto a t-shirt, sweatshirt, coffee mug, phone case, or shower curtain are the initial launch products that we're going with. And that's going to launch later this year. And that we think is going to drive a lot of value both to users and to publishers and songwriters. We're also launching lyric translations and a few other products as well.
So lyric printing onto like on demand.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's something that we had originally been thinking about years ago, but the industry and on-demand printing technology wasn't really there yet. And then it got revived a couple of years ago when we brought on Will Mills, our chief revenue officer, and he had it as an idea as well and started looking into it. And we thought, okay, maybe the industry has matured enough that we can do it and the logistics are there. So it's actually going to happen now, and we're really excited about it.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, then everybody's happy because everybody gets paid. Because I mean, I've seen stuff like that, obviously, but it's not licensed.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you guys have the licensing agreements already for it, so.
Right. Yeah, we've had to go back and add in merchandise rights to our deals, but it's something that many publishers have complained to us about, that they go to places like Etsy and it's like playing whack-a-mole with lyric-based merchandise that's there and none of it is licensed.
Right. So you guys will aim to change that.
Yeah. Similar to how we legitimized the lyric traffic that was just on the web in general when we started, we're going to try to do the same thing with merchandise and create a legitimate channel for people to come and buy official authorized licensed merchandise that is high quality, artist and writer approved, and that they know that they're getting a legitimate product and compensating the creators.
I love it. I love it. All right, Darryl, this has been an absolute blast, man. I do want to wrap up with one final question for you, if I can.
Sure.
It's this idea I'm working with calling the entrepreneurial gap. So as you're pushing ahead 13 years at this, it seems like no matter what we accomplish as entrepreneurs, as dreamers, that we always personally project our successes into the future. Meaning that in 3 months when you hit that revenue metric, or in 6 months when you stand on that stage, whatever it is the goals you set for yourself, you're seeing yourself successful at that point. But you and I both know that seconds before you hit that, you're going to set bigger, loftier goals into the future, which I agree we have to do. But it puts us in this weird place where no matter what we accomplish, we just never see ourselves as successful. So I would love it right now, Darryl, if you could stop, turn, and look behind you at the past 13 years, the highs, the lows, the wins, and the losses, and tell me how you feel about this whole journey up until today.
To be honest, I feel amazing. If you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have been super unsatisfied, and I would have been fairly jaded about the whole process. A substantial amount of our growth, the vast majority of it, has happened over the last 5 years. So we were 8 years in and seemingly going nowhere fast. And then the right things fell into place. And now, to be honest, I'm very much right where we expected to be, where we hoped to be. It took a bit longer than we thought. But for my co-founder, Mohammed, and I, we're now at the point where we've created an industry. We've created a method for legitimizing lyric use. We're getting songwriters and publishers paid, and we're seeing lyrics in all of the major music services that are out there, and legitimately licensed lyrics everywhere. So I think I certainly speak for both of us when I say that we're really proud of what we've accomplished and the industry that we basically shaped and formed with help from others in the music industry, of course. And for the most part, we set out and accomplished what we originally wanted to do. And now we get to have a bit more fun with it. Now we have the resources to do things like lyric merch or translations and things that we think are cool and fun. And in the case of translation, something that can be really helpful to the world overall, and have the resources to do it. So we're in a very comfortable, happy place now. And it took a long time, and there were certainly times along the way where we were really unsatisfied. But I think, maybe unlike others, that we are quite happy with where we are. We want to do more. We want to build the company and build the other products and get into new areas. But we've checked off the box that we wanted at the beginning. And I think that's a big source of satisfaction for both of us. And hopefully we can check off the rest of the boxes. But even if we don't, I think we'll both have a really good sense of pride in establishing this industry and getting people paid for the use of their lyrics.
Very well said. Very well said. And I think maybe you just made me realize that other people who are answering differently than you or are feeling this way are probably back where you were 5 years ago. They don't know how close they are to that final breakthrough to really starting to accomplish what they set out to do. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of people just stop. because you're 8 years in and maybe it just won't happen.
Yeah, there were certainly times where we strongly considered it, or we figured maybe we should just sell the company at a discount and move on to something else. But we had the right mix of clairvoyance and stupidity, I guess, and stuck it out. I think partly because neither one of us wanted to go work for somebody else. And then it all did fall into place. But there were a lot of times along the way where it could have gone the other way.
And you didn't let it. Lyricfind.com is the website. It's the world's largest lyric licensing service. Darryl, thanks again so much for taking the time to join me on the show. Thanks for sharing so openly. I really do appreciate it. And please just keep doing what you're doing because it is awesome to watch.
Sure. Thank you, John. It's been a lot of fun talking to you.
I've now been using ActiveCampaign for 4 months, 4 almost entire months within my business, and it is my favorite tool to use in my business. It's simple, it's easy to use, and it's super effective the way it listens, learns, and adapts to how my subscribers act, open, read, listen, click through, all those things. It's a fascinating email marketing tool that I think you should try. If you want to see why thousands are upgrading to a more intelligent marketing solution, you can get a 14-day free trial right now without even using a credit card. Go to activecampaign.com/hack. Not only that, for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, I've got you a special deal. Free migration. So if you have an email list or email lists and templates and all that stuff over at another email provider, don't worry about it. We're going to move you over to ActiveCampaign absolutely for free. Plus, whatever service level you choose after your 14-day trial, you're going to get your second month absolutely free. Plus, this is cool, a free one-on-one strategy session with a platform consultant. You can even use this during your free trial to sort out how this platform works and see how to utilize it in your business. Start marketing smarter today. Go to activecampaign.com/hack and get started with your free trial. That was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed talking to Darryl from across the city. Oftentimes we talk with oceans between us, but today it was just a few city blocks. But it was great to talk to Darryl and to get his insight into his merging of art and commerce, and then also how the story of LyricFind, how it was so close to not happening, and now what he's created it's inspiring. It's really, really, really cool to see. So getting to take part in that conversation is one thing, and it's something I really love to do, but I also really enjoy this part of the show, the part where I get to go back and listen. Get to go back and listen like you listen to the conversation as that third person. So that's what I did. I went back and I listened, and then I went back and I listened again. That third time through the conversation with Darryl, there was something he had said that was so very clear, yet I had missed it. I'm not sure how. But this third time through, when he said it, it was just so very, very clear to me. It was that one thing that Darryl said. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
We got a call from Microsoft when they were launching the MSN Music Store, and they wanted to add lyric functionality into it. And they had found our old website, which had no lyrics on it, but did have my cell phone number. And they called me, and this is very metaphorical to how everything evolved after this call, but they called me literally while I was stepping onto a roller coaster at Canada's Wonderland with my family. And it was the summer after I had graduated from university. And thus began the roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship.
And that's the hack. Darryl. Freaking love this story. It's almost too good to be true. It's so good, but it's good for more than one reason. I love this idea of you never know when that call's going to come, where something happens. It doesn't have to be Microsoft, but it can be anyone. But it's based on an idea, a website, something that Darryl had started previously and left it there and moved on. So I often talk about entrepreneurship as like this evolutionary sort of process. Everything, every project, every business, every website that you decide to start is sort of all part of the evolution of you, the entrepreneur. You don't start from zero, standing still, and then launch a giant company. There's these evolutionary steps that you never, ever, ever know where they're going to lead, right? So there's a common thing within the success sort of community where people always talk about, like, you never know, like when you quit, you never know how close you are to the breakthrough or the finish line or whatever it happens to be. And people often quit right then. But that doesn't necessarily matter, because the fact that you had started is what matters in this case. It's not that Darryl had decided to quit that business at that point because he could revitalize it and roll it into what became Lyric Find. It was that he had started. He had not decided to not start this other company and then just let it sit there. But it was the fact that that company existed on the internet that Microsoft could find, reach out to him via his cell phone number and call him at any time, literally when he's standing in line waiting for a roller coaster with his family. Right? I mean, 8 or 9 years, whatever it is later, I can't remember the date, but from Lyric Find, it seems like it's a big organization doing really well now, and it is, but it started from something that was unrelated, kind of, but similar, and had been shut down or just stopped and was there. Right? It's always hard when we're looking back to try and imagine how they got to that point. That point is got through stepping stones. That's how you get there. And Darryl did that and left it. Don't worry about this end big thing you have to get to. Start with the smallest thing you can. Just start moving forward and think of it as the evolutionary process of your entrepreneurship, not as how am I going to get from here to there? Because we don't know how we're going to get there. He couldn't have ever planned or imagined that Microsoft would call it that very moment. That wasn't the point. It was that he had started and given that opportunity the ability to even appear. Darryl, thank you so very, very much. All right, so a year and a bit ago, I launched a book. It became an Amazon bestseller. I've sold almost 10,000 copies now. And I got an email randomly from Amazon a couple weeks ago, and they want to do a promotion for it this summer on Amazon, which is amazing. So the book has to stay for $2.99 or up for the digital copy, and you can buy the paperback for $12.99. But as a special offer to you, my very dedicated and awesome listener and potentially reader, I want to give it to you for free, the digital copy. So you can still buy the paperback if you would like, and I would absolutely love it, for $12.99 if you would like that. But if you're into digital books, PDFs, Kindle, Mobi versions, go to hacktheentrepreneur.com right now. Right at the top, you'll see. I'm offering it to you for the price of an email address. That's it. If you're already on my email list and you would still like the book, you can put in your email address anyways, and you'll get redirected to the page where you can download it. If you have bought my book for $2.99, I truly do thank you. It's very cool of you. But this is not sort of a promotion to try and get you to buy the digital book. It's absolutely free. And if you want to just know more about the book, hacktheentrepreneur.com/book, you can find out kind of what's in it before you donate your email address to me for that. All right. It's been fun. Also, while you're over there, I mean, when you sign up and you get that email and you get the book, you can hit reply to any of those emails. They come right to me. Got a brand new website. I think you're going to dig it, but I'd love to hear your feedback on that too. So hit reply to that welcome email that you get and tell me what you think. Tell me if you find any bugs or if you have any ideas or thoughts for me. I'd appreciate it. All right. It's been fun. Thank you so much for stopping by. I truly do appreciate it. And please, until next time, keep hacking the entrepreneur.